Okay, morning future educators. So this is continuation of guidelines in test writing and construction. Our focus is your short answer test. Now let's talk about your short answer test first. When I say short answer test, this would require the learner to answer a question or to finish an incomplete statement by filling in the blank with the correct answer or phrase. So that is filling in the blank with the correct answer or phrase. Basically, I think we commonly know your short answer test as identification. Diba? Commonly sinasabi natin identification as a type of exam. So your short answer test could be identification. Your fill in the blanks could also be considered your short answer test. Okay? Now, these are some of the guidelines that we need to remember when we are constructing this type of examination. One, you need to omit only the significant words from the statement. In other words, kapag gumagawa tayo ng fill in the blanks, dapat yung naka-blank class is yung mga significant words. Ano pong ibig sabihin natin ng significant words? Now look at the example on your right. Every atom has a central blank called a nucleus. Okay? Tingnan nyo kung ano yung naka-blank. Central what? Okay? How about look at this one? Every atom has a central core called an blank. Okay? So kung titingnan natin yung example na to, the example above class is actually a faulty example, and whereas the sample below is the good example. If we would look at this example, we will be able to realize that, okay, dapat yung significant or dapat yung relevant statement or relevant word yung ginagawa nating blank. And in this case, that word that was made blank is your nucleus. Compare the nucleus to the core, mas may importante yung nucleus kaysa sa core. Okay? Now, there are other educators, for example, na sasabihin, blank atom has a central core called nucleus. Class, kapag every yung iba-blank mo, what is the learning on the end of your student? Okay, you are just teaching your students, you are just teaching your learners to memorize the sentences word for word, but you are not reminding them, okay, you are not reminding them to focus on the more important word. Kung kaya the guideline is you only focus on the significant words from that statement. Okay, hindi na nagpapagusto lang kung ano yung iba-blank natin. Second, do not omit too many words from the statement such that the intended meaning is already lost, or in such a way that your student will not be able to identify already what are you asking for. Okay? Now look at this one. The part of the blank where the blank is attached is blank. So kapag ikaw yung student, ano yung tanong? The part of the body where the skin is attached, or is it the part of the bone where the muscle is attached? Okay? So pag nagbablank tayo, okay lang naman yung multiple blanks, but just make sure that your sentence still makes sense. Or else your student would be confused if ano yung gagawin niya, okay, or ano yung i-fill in niya sa blanks. So look at the example below. The part of the flower where the stalk is attached is referred to as blank. Okay? So class, that makes sense, no? Kung anong part ng flower yung naka-attach yung stalk natin. Hindi na the part of the blank where the blank is blank, lahat na lang blank. Hindi po pwede. Next, avoid obvious clues to the correct response. Look at the example here given by our reference text, Balagtas. No? So class, Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law in 1972. The president during that period is blank. Eh di parang obvious, Ferdinand Marcos. Okay? But if you would rephrase it and say that the president during the martial law years was blank. Okay? Right there, and then the student would think, sino nga ba? Okay, si Ferdinand Marcos. Okay? Next, be sure that there is only one correct response. Okay? That's one struggle or difficulty also that we have. No? If you're having fill in the blanks or identification, it's best for you to have one single response. Kapag hindi po siya single response or kapag hindi po siya one correct response, it's best for you to perform an enumeration rather than to have your students have fill in the blanks na maraming sagot. Okay? Kapag marami po yung possible sagot, it's better for you to do your enumeration rather than for you to do your identification. So look at this example. The government should start using renewable energy sources such as, guys, can you give me examples of renewable energy sources? Sige nga. Let's try to answer this one. The government should start using renewable energy sources such as, sige, ano yung mga examples ng renewable energy sources? Can I see answers in the chat or can I hear your responses? Sige nga. Anybody? Sige na, give me examples of renewable energy sources. Guys, am I audible? Okay, yes, solar energy is one. What else? Sige, solar energy daw. Ano pa yung iba? Wind energy is one. What else? Geothermal energy is one. So class, kapag ito po yung question ko, kapag yung question ko is just like the one that you are responding here in chat, that would give me a lot of hard time to check because there are a lot of multiple answers. And lahat po namang sagot ninyo tama, no? Solar, wind, geothermal, plant energy. I'm not so sure kung anong plant yung ibig mong sabihin. Pero more likely, there is such type of energy. So you need to be more specific. For example, the government should start using renewable sources of energy by using turbines called, okay? So class, this type of energy is your wind energy. Okay? Yung energy po na gumagamit ng turbines is your wind energy. Okay? Now, look at another example. Avoid grammatical clues to the correct response. Okay? And class, that grammatical clue could be found here. Let me allow me to square it. So class, nakikita po natin dito na yung grammatical clue is nagsasabi siyang a. Okay? So pag sinabi niyang a, that would give a hint. Is it a nucleus? Hindi ito atom. Kasi kapag atom to, dapat an atom yung nilagay ni ma'am. Hindi naman to siguro dog. Kasi kapag, or hindi naman to siguro vowel, no? Kasi kapag vowel to, dapat an yung nilagay ni ma'am. So dapat hindi kayo nagbibigay ng grammatical clues. And how do we deal with it? Like this one. Okay, you write it as a or an. Okay, so that your participant, your learners would be thinking if what is really the correct answer. Hindi na minimemorize lang. Okay, now if possible, put the blank at the end of the statement rather than the beginning, so that the students' class will analyze or synthesize after they have read the sentence. Hindi sila mag-a-analyze at the start of the sentence kasi if you are placing the blank at the start of the sentence, pabalik-balik lang po sila ng thought process nila. Okay, so you are not organizing the thought process of your learner, you are actually making them confused. So if you will be making your fill in the blanks, place the fill in the blanks at the end of the sentence. Okay, so that's it for your short answers. Do you have any question with regards to short answer test or identification or fill in the blanks? Okay? Wala. Pag may katanungan, pwedeng ihabol sa chat. Okay? Now, let's talk about essay. Perhaps essay is among the most common, but still among the most abused type of assessment or type of written assessment that we have. Bakit ko po sinasabi na most abused type of written assessment? Because napakaraming essay na hindi nabibigyan ng hustisya. Napakaraming essay wherein the instructor may be tired on checking it and then the instructor would just say, okay na nga, 5 points kasi mahaba. Ay, itong essay maikli. Gawin na lang natin 2 points out of 5. Itong essay, 1 sentence lang, 1 point lang to. So class, whenever you're giving essay test, essay is a very good way for us to assess the learning of our students. But we need to make sure, we need to ascertain that we are giving the same commitment when we are checking the essays of our students. Okay? So, pag-usapan natin yung essay. Ano yung essay? It requires learners to create a response. It is preferred for your higher order thinking, such as your reasoning, analyzing, synthesis, and then evaluation. It also assesses the writing abilities of your student. That's why, especially if you are in the high school going towards the collegiate, no? Okay, in your case, since you are bound to teach elementary and high school students, you need class to assess the writing skills of your students, especially these times, no? Bakit ko po sinasabing these times? It has been observed kasi that the writing skills of the students seems to be unfocused on, and it seems to be that the writing skills of the students is diminishing as we go on time. Okay? Parang humihina po yung writing skills natin. And it is through essay that we will be able to assess we will be able to help our students develop their writing skills. And also, it can assess the ability to reason with their knowledge about the subject. In other words, class, tinitingnan natin whether they are able to reason based on the topics that we are discussing, based also on the lessons that we have already discussed, and assess problem solving and decision-making skills among your students. Okay? It assesses problem solving and decision skills among your students. Now, there are two different types of essays that we usually pertain to in assessment. One type is your extended response, and then the other type is your restricted response. Meron po tayong, again, extended response at meron tayong restricted response. When I say class extended response, longer. Extended nga di ba? So longer and complex responses. Parang halimbawa, sinasabi, discuss your point of view of politics in the Philippine setting. Extended. Okay? Pag sinabi ko namang restricted response, it's more focused or restrained. Let's say, for example, we will say, what is your opinion on extrajudicial killing? Discuss in 3 sentences. Or halimbawa, what can you say about this Bible verse, John 3:16? Discuss in 3 sentences. So you are making the student focus, you are making the student restrained on that response only. So that's what you refer to as restricted response. Baka tanungin nyo, sir, which is more preferred? Extended response or restricted response? By this time, you should be able to realize that I will respond. It would depend on your intended learning outcomes. Okay, it would depend on your intended learning outcomes. Now, for example, you're handing a class in literature. Okay, let's say, for example, you're handing a class in Asian literature, and then you are doing your summative assessment already at the end of the semester. Then you can ask the student to submit a term paper that would discuss, the interesting points or the salient points of Asian literature. Okay, that could be extended response essay. But for example, if I'm doing my quizzes, and then there is a certain story there, no? For example, may story kang nilagay. Meron kang short story na nilagay, or maybe a short excerpt. Let's say an excerpt from a poem in Indonesia. And then you would want your students to explain this. Okay? That could be a restricted response. Eh, halimbawa, sasabihin nyo, explain the second stanza of the poem and its relevance to the care of the Indonesian people. Okay? That could be restricted response. So again, it would depend on your intended learning outcomes for that specific examination or for that specific assessment. So what are the rules for guiding, for having your essays? One is to clearly define the ILO to be assessed by the essay questions. So wag po kayong gawa-gawa lang ng essay pagkatapos sasabihin, discuss your point of view about life. Okay? The student will be confused. Anong about life? Yung subject natin mathematics. Bakit tinatanong ako about life? Okay? So have essays that are relevant to your subject. For example, if you're teaching mathematics and then you've discussed area, or you've discussed, for example, perimeter, okay, perimeter or area of polygons for that matter, then you ask the student, how can they be able to apply their knowledge about the area and perimeter in actual life setting? Okay, ganon. So dapat clear. Then refrain from using essay tests for ILO that are better assessed by other kinds of assessment. For example, if there are 10 steps, halimbawa sinabi natin there is 10 steps in a certain procedure, essay is not the best way for you to talk about these 10 steps. If gusto kong i-recall ng student ko yung 10 steps, the best assessment supposedly is enumeration. I would ask my student to enumerate. Now, if I would want my student to identify terms, the best way for me to do it is using perhaps multiple choice, or if not, I would be using the short answer type of test. Okay? So, essay is only reserved if you would want your student to synthesize, analyze, if you would want your student to create a thought, okay, about a certain topic that you would want to discuss on. Okay? So, hindi pa pwede na lahat na lang essay. Next, clearly define and situate the task within the problem situation as well as the type of thinking required. Okay? Now, ano pong ibig sabihin natin ng clearly defined? Dapat, kapag may problem kayo na gusto, let's say for example, extrajudicial killing, you need to clearly define that the problem is extrajudicial killing. That's why my example goes, discuss your point of view about the extrajudicial killing. Okay? That's clearly defining the problem, which is extrajudicial killing. And then, what is the type of thinking there? Discuss. Okay? Discuss. Pwede ko pang dagdagan at saka sabihin ko, compare and contrast kay extrajudicial killing in the ASEAN countries. Ibig sabihin, gusto kong mag-compare siya, gusto kong mag-contrast siya sa kahit anong Asian countries, for example, Indonesia, for example, Brunei for that matter, for example, Singapore. Okay? So right there and then, I am telling my student what to do. Discuss, tapos ang compare, pagkatapos magko-contrast. Those are the type of thinking. Then, present tasks that are reasonable, fair, and realistic. For example, if you are having a 100-point exam, pagkatapos 90 points is ibang type of assessment, just make sure that if the last 10 points is essay, make sure that your students would have ample time to answer the essay. Kasi ang mahirap mamaya is that if yung items 1 to 90 mo, masyadong mahirap, pagkatapos pagdating ng student sa essay, wala na siyang masyadong maisusulat kasi naghahabol na siya ng oras, or hindi po kaya gagawin ng student is mag-cram na lang, make shortened answers because they do not have enough time. So make sure that your time is reasonable. And then class, be specific and the prompts about time allotment and criteria for grading the response. Okay? Now, may mga nagtatanong sometimes, kailangan ko ba talaga ng rubric for an essay? Class, it would depend again on the type of essay that you are having. Arbitrarily, ito po ay hindi sa textbook, arbitrary guide lang po na natutunan ko from other educators. Usually, if an assessment is less than 10 points, no need for a rubric. Okay? No need for a rubric if the assessment is less than 10 points. Okay? Yan po usually yung ginagamit naming guide in practice. However, ideally, even if titingnan po natin yung local textbooks natin dito sa Philippines, and then even the international textbooks on educational assessment, there should be a rubric in whatever assessment that we are doing to our students. Okay? Now, so paano po natin gagawin yon? Halimbawa, 5-point exam siya, okay, on the essay. Okay? Tapos may question ka ng ginawa, di ba? So sabihin natin, for example, compare and contrast the health expenditures of the Philippines with any ASEAN, okay, ASEAN country, as in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Okay, discuss its impact to the health of the Filipino people. Tapos merong iba naglalagay, di ba? So limit ano nga ba? Minimum of, sige, your response must be in a minimum of 200 words, but not to exceed 500 words. Okay? May mga ganon. Okay? So ano pong purpose? Bakit po natin sinasabi yung minimum at saka yung maximum? So that the student will be guided kung ano kahaba yung ine-expect mo. Okay, gaano nga ba kahaba yung ine-expect mong response? Now let's go towards the rubric for grading. You can say this is how you will be graded. Okay? Then, able to discuss the difference of the health expenditure. Halimbawa, gano'n ha. Tapos with correct grammar, okay, and sentence structure. Okay, so ibig sabihin, pag 10 points siya, gusto mong i-include yung grammar dun sa criteria mo. Pagkatapos sabihin naman, 7 points. Okay? So, hindi naman kailangan plus na 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Hindi, no? Pwede siyang ranges lang. So, let's say, for example, 7 to 9, able to discuss, but with some grammatical errors. Grammatical errors. Boss, pwede mo namang sabihin 4 to 6. Okay? So, ano yung 4 to 6 mo? Ano yung mga scores mo na 3? Ano yung score mo na 0? Okay? So that way, your student will be able already to understand kung ano yung ini-expect mo sa kanya sa essay mo. Hindi siya pwede class na maglalagay ka lang ng isang sentence tapos you let them do it. Okay? You need to be able to quantify. You need to be able to clearly tell your students if what are your expectations to this essay. That way, class, mas madali po actually sa inyong mag-check, and that way you will minimize the frustration also of your learners. Bakit? Oftentimes po kasi in essay, what happens is that iba yung ine-expect ng instructor, iba din po yung ine-expect ng faculty member, at iba din po yung ine-expect ni learner. Now, for example, let's take for example, the example that I had with the Bible verse. Explain John 3:16, for God so loved the world. Okay? So, pag ganon class, no, nag-explain yung student, halimbawa yung nilagay ng student, yung life experiences niya that would connect to John 3:16. Tama naman yung ginawa niya kasi that's his way of explaining it. Pero ikaw naman as a teacher is actually expecting that they will respond by connecting John 3:16 with the other Bible verses that are related to it. So parang gusto mo palang alamin or gusto mo palang makita kung bakit sinakripisyo ni Christ yung sarili niya, kay bakit sinakripisyo ni Jesus yung sarili niya for the mankind. Okay? And you would want an explanation on that. So class, you need to be clear. Okay? You need to be clear to your students because either way, kapag they explained it based on their life experiences, and then they explained it on the biblical or the historical sense of why that Bible verse came to be, they could be correct. They could be correct. So dapat clear kayo kung ano yung ini-expect nyo sa mag-aaral para hindi kayo mahihirapang mag-check at hindi din kayo class, your learners will not be frustrated. Okay? To avoid frustration on the part of your learners. Okay, am I clear on that? Can I get a heart react or maybe a like react if I'm coming in clear on that? Sige, can I see reactions first? Okay, I can see 2. Okay, I can see 6 people reacting. Yung iba, okay, I can see more than 10 already. Okay, if you have questions, for example, may pumasok sa isip nyo na type ng essay or maybe short answer test, feel free to type it. Okay, feel free to type it and I will see my professional point of view on that. If how can we improve that? Okay? Next is your problem solving, especially for dealing mathematics, especially for dealing sciences or maybe engineering later on. So problem solving. Plus your problem solving is used to measure learning, okay, to solve the learner's ability to solve problems that would require quantitative knowledge, competencies, and critical thinking skills. And this would require learners to demonstrate work procedures or produce a correct solution. Then full or partial credit can be assigned to the answers. What do we mean, class, by full or partial credit? Di ba, class, may mga computations tayo, lalo na sa math, di ba? Yung mga math major dyan, magko-computations ka. So dapat clear sa instructions mo, no? Eh, bakit hindi makita? So dapat, class, clear sa instruction mo kung paano mo sila i-grade. So di ba magbibigay ka ng instruction, read each item carefully, compute for what is being asked, okay? And then box the final answer. Ako, class, when I started making assessment in mathematics, no, always ko talagang sinasabi, box the final answer. Because experience would tell me that it is very difficult to check and to identify where the final answer is kapag hindi mo pinapabox sa student. Okay? So dapat kasanayin nyo sila na binabox nila yung final answer. Now, dapat sabihin nyo then you will be graded as follows. Okay? 3 points. Correct solution and correct answer. 2 points. Correct solution, wrong answer. Okay? Sorry, dapat semicolon para hindi ma-confuse ang student. Or kapag hindi naman kaya, pwede naman i-enter natin para another line siya. Okay? Then, 1 point, for example, correct answer, wrong solution. Ibig sabihin, class, mas binibigyan mo ng punto yung solution kaysa doon sa answer, no? Tapos 0 point kay 0 kapag wrong answer, wrong solution. Okay? That way, your student will be able to understand, ay, dapat palang ipakita ko yung solution. Okay? Show the solution or box the final answer and box the final. Okay? Now, if you're dealing with physics, if you're dealing, for example, with statistics, baka kailangan talaga ng actual formula. So, dapat i-indicate nyo dyan, show the formula and the solution. That way, the student will be able to understand na ay dapat sinusulat ko talagang formula. Hindi pwede na dediretso na lang ako. Okay? So for example, in your chemistry, in your physics, di ba force is equal to mass times acceleration. So you would want them to write the formula first before they would proceed with the substitution. Okay? So kindly remember that. So we can do this in problem-solving exam. Pwede tayong magbigay ng full or partial credit depending on what are we trying to assess. So when you are making your problem-solving test, make sure that it would minimize the guessing. Hindi pa pwede na maghuhula-hula lang yung student tapos makukuha niya yung sagot. Dapat kas ma-minimize yung guessing game. Pagkatapos, you should be able to measure instructional objective that focus on higher cognitive levels. Then it should be able to measure also extensive contents or topics. However, class, the challenge naman here is that it is actually giving us more time to construct. Also more time for us to read or more time also for us to correct. Okay, so yan lang yung challenge of problem item test. There are different types of problem solving test. Merong one answer choice. So pwede siya class multiple choice, no? Pagkatapos pipiliin nila yung correct answer. Depende na rin sa inyo kapag bibigyan nyo siya ng credit sa solution, sa formula, at saka sa correct answer. Then doon naman class sa all possible answer choice, parang it's select all that apply. Pagkatapos yung type in answer is just like your identification. Halimbawa, sinasabi mo, 5 squared is blank. That is a type in answer. Okay? Or how about sinabi mo, the quantity of, di ba sa math marami tayong mga ganito. Mga 5 plus 2 minus 3, tapos naka-bracket naman, tapos halimbawa times 2, okay, divided by, kung ano pa dyan ang gusto mong i-add, is blank. That is an example of a type in answer. Parang identification po siya. Okay? So there are different types of problem-solving tests, and it depends to you as to how you would want your students to be assessed. But the reminder is, you need to identify and explain the problem clearly. You need to be specific and clear on the type of responses being required. And other than that, you have to specify the basis for grading. Okay? So you have to specify the basis for grading. Tulad ng example na binigay ko kanina. Okay, that will be all for the different types of examinations and the different type of writing, no, or guidelines in writing our examinations. Do you have any questions that you would want to ask?